I would like to introduce to you all Miss Kate Hanley. I'd like to call her Katherine Hanley because that was an aunt's name of mine, but I will call her Kate because I think she goes by Kate. And I'm going to start spotlighting you, Miss Hanley, for everyone to see as I give you a brief introduction in case anyone does not know who she is, but I'm sure many of you do. Um, she is the chair of the Fairfax County Electoral Board. Many of you may know Ms. Hanley as she has served in various offices throughout Fairfax County, including the Secretary of the Commonwealth of Virginia. She was the chairman of the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors, the Providence Supervisor, as well as a member of the Fairfax County School Board. Ms. Hanley has a long list of service to our community, and we are so happy that she agreed to join us tonight to share some key updates and insights regarding the upcoming election. Also, Ms. Hanley has agreed to answer any questions. So if you do have any questions for her, if you would place that in the chat, and we will ask those of her after she has completed talking. So Ms. Hanley, if you would like to start, I'm going to get off screen so that you can start. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you, and thank you for inviting me. First, let me apologize for this rather dim kind of atmosphere, the Halloweeny atmosphere in the background. I have a new computer, and when I turn up the light, it seems to dim the screen. I don't know what's going on. So, there, now you see. And so I can't get it any lighter, so I look like I'm sitting in the dark. Let me talk a little bit about something that's very important to all of us is how in Fairfax County that we can be sure that we have safe, secure, accurate, accessible elections. Accessible not only physically, but to those who are able to register to vote easily and vote easily. In Virginia, just like everything else, that is sort of Virginia's a Dillon rule state. So we have kind of a Mother May I situation in elections as well. There is a state board of elections, as you all may know or may not. You don't get to see it much, and appointed by the governor, and a commissioner of elections. And most of the state law and the implementation of it on elections comes from the state. And so the local offices pretty much we do what the state requires. The list of registered voters belongs to the state, not to us. We just work with it and try to keep it up to date in each jurisdiction. So we have to have the rules and regulations pretty much come from the state. All 133 jurisdictions of Virginia, however, have an electoral board. 2 members by law of the party of the governor and 1 of the party of the whoever came in second, and appointed by recommendations from the parties to the judge of the circuit court who appoint us. As you know, Virginia is very different. So elections in Fairfax County we have more registered voters at 808,000 registered voters than Arlington and Prince William have residents combined. So while we try to do everything consistently in Virginia, we're a big jurisdiction. And so we have more, as Fairfax County does, of everything. All 103 jurisdictions of Virginia have, though, an electoral board. And so we try to do it all the same way, but that doesn't, we're too big. As you all know, in Virginia, we have an election every year. And for us operating elections, we have difficulty looking back to figure out what's going to happen next year because last year was different. Last year was a presidential year. This year is the gubernatorial year. The presidential year gets the highest turnout and the most interest. The gubernatorial and the delegates year is second in interest. Third in interest is the next year, which is simply whoever's up in the Senate and the congressman. And the next year, the fourth in the series, is the year when everybody's on the ballot and nobody much votes. That's the local year, the year of the members of the board, of the school board, all of those issues, and of course of the state house and senate. So every year is different, the turnout's different, and it's hard to predict on what's going to happen. We've had a lot of changes in the law since COVID. Um, no excuse absentee has changed much, and we'll talk about that. We have satellites that allow early voting. We've always had satellites. Fairfax has had them since 1977, but no excuse, not needing an excuse to vote absentee has radically changed the number of people who vote absentee. So those changes, we have a permanent absentee list. All of those things we now print, as we have for the last 8 years, ballots in 4 languages. So there have been a lot of changes. Some of those, of course, have been more complicated than others, but we have in Fairfax really seen a move toward voting early. We have now 265 precincts. That's a lot of precincts. During redistricting, we had 247 before then, and now we have 265. And if you vote on election day, let's talk about voting early later, you must vote in your precinct. If somebody votes in the wrong precinct, it's not going to count, even if they say, I'll just vote here and vote provisionally. If you vote in the wrong precinct on election day, there's nothing we can do to accept that. In the wrong precinct is out. So that is one of the things that we're working to promulgate this year, because people are so used to voting on early now that they think they can just stop in and vote anywhere on election day. And you can't. You have to vote in your own precinct on election day. So that's one of the first things I want to be sure that we get the word out on. In Fairfax County, we use all kinds of buildings as precincts. We use 167 schools, we use parks, we use recreation centers, we use the animal shelter, we use all kinds of things. We're having trouble finding now enough places to have precincts that are accessible, that are big enough, and that are where we need them. So that's one of the things that we're working with. I want to give you a few statistics on the number of people it takes Fairfax to run an election. We have 265 precincts. So on election day this year, we will have 2,350 election officials. We'll have 250 officials working in the early voting all along. During election day, we'll have 30 rovers, people who go around and help if things go wrong, and 5 of those are regional rovers. We'll have 585 election machines. They've been tested before we get there to be sure they're accurate. It takes 63 people to test those machines. It took 4 days this year. It took 10 days last year. And we're a moving company on election day. We have to move before the election, all that stuff to those 265 precincts. And the day after, we have to move it back. We have 63 members of that team, but we also use school movers, all of that. After we return the stuff on election day, we'll have 65 people helping us get the information, the stuff back to the government center, and we will have the sheriffs helping us take the ballots directly on election night to the court. So, and the next day we get up and start the canvass, and there'll be 50 people involved with that. So it is a big operation for us on election day. You know, as well as most of us do, that there are other ways to vote. You can vote by mail. You can be on the permanent absentee list. And now we are getting a lot of people. This is another change. We're having a lot of people bring their mail ballot back to the boxes, the ballot boxes that are at the polls on election day, that are at the satellites now, and the permanent drop box that's outside the government center. The others are all monitored, have people with them. The one outside the government center has a camera on it to ensure its security. It looks a lot like something other than a ballot box. It looks a lot like those things that you see along the sides of the roads when workers need to go there. And people, it's too big to be to look like a ballot box, but it is. We're getting a lot of the mail back that way, and that's another change that we've seen. You've noticed that we have early voting starting. We are required 45 days before an election to have the ballot ready to be printed. And when that ballot is ready, we are required in the Office of Elections, the registrar is required to be able to let someone vote. So all that voting that goes on in the government center is really the office of the registrar. We just do it downstairs because there's too many people. Right now, we have early voting going on downstairs in the government center for November, and upstairs in our office for December. We have two elections going at once. It's the Braddock election going at once. It's extremely confusing, so we use a lot of signs. Um, the only other thing that's really different that I want to leave you with and give you an opportunity to ask questions is that we now can, people can same day register. You, after the books close 10 days before the election, if you're voting at an early voting site, you can register when you go there, and you register and then you cast a provisional vote. We count most of the provisional votes now. A huge percentage of them count. People always say, I don't want to vote provisionally because it won't count. The electoral board adjudicates those after the election, and close to 90% now do count. It doesn't count if you're in the wrong precinct. There's nothing we can do about that. So the same day registration has changed. Certainly, we don't have as many people registering early because they know now they can vote either at the last minute at the satellites, or on election day, you can register and cast a provisional vote. That means it takes us a little bit longer to be sure we get everybody registered properly, that they are appropriately registered, and then be sure their vote counts. So that's one of the issues that has changed over the years and has changed how we work. I would leave you with the issues facing us besides the changes. One of them is it's getting very hard to find precincts in places that meet all the requirements. In some of our urban areas like Tyson's Corner, it's extremely difficult. One of the other thing is, of course, sufficient funding is across the state problem. Our local government has been very good to us, but elections are mandated, the rules are mandated by the state, they're funded by the local governments. And so that does create a difference across the Commonwealth. The code has not kept up in all the places with it. It's sometimes you can't be right and you can't be wrong. And the last one, which is the most important, I think, to me, is to be sure that our voting rolls are accurate, but that we're not taking people off of them that shouldn't be taken off of them for reasons that we need to straighten out. I think with the DMV, the situation that we talk about, where people at the DMV don't see under the clip or don't say that they are a citizen, and if they say nothing, they are assumed to not be a citizen. That, I think, is one of the things. If I could have three wishes and wave a wand, we would be sure we'd sorted out that situation with the DMV. Let me stop there and take a breath and answer any questions that you might have or anything you want to talk about.
Thank you so much. We do have a couple of questions. Most of them are mine, so I'm going to go with the ones that are
Go
in the
with them.
chat first. I happen to be one of those 2,000 or so election officers, have been doing it for
Good.
several years now. And it's something I enjoy doing every year. And this is not my question, it's someone else's because we did just get a raise. But one of the questions was, will there be a pay increase for poll workers in the near future?
Wow, that's a good question. Given what's going on in county government, I would be very surprised if we do. We're struggling now to meet what it is that we won't do that we're doing now. For this year, the response to that for this fiscal year that we're in was we have been cutting back a little bit on poll workers if we in places that we think we may have overstaffed. We don't quite know what we're going to do. I would personally prefer to get a number that we have to meet and be able to adjust it rather than cut some, all of the same thing. But we don't know what we're going to cut yet, so are going to have to cut. So I don't think I see a raise for workers in the cards.
Okay, thank you for that. That brings to mind another question. Could you say what the total budget is for an election year for, is it different for the presidential election?
It's
Okay.
different every year.
Mm-hmm.
It's different every year. We've tried to do that. We don't know how to figure it out. I don't even know what our total budget is right now. The county has been very good to us. We're trying to do, I heard a $250,000 number for the Braddock special, but I think that's low, and that doesn't include the infrastructure that is already there. I've named a number of the number of people it takes. A couple of years ago, I report to the Board of Supervisors every year. We had 3,166 people working. Now, they weren't necessarily there, that was the number of jobs that needed to be done. Some of them were doing several. So we have um, a lot of part-time people that work. Um, it is, I guess, it's been so important to the Board of Supervisors and to us that we have efficient elections and that they're safe and that people don't have to stand in line forever and that we do those things to make voting accessible and secure, um, that we've not had to cut anything yet. We'll maneuver a little bit, but we haven't had to cut anything yet.
Another question as far as early voting, do you know how the numbers look for this year? Are they
Yes,
above
I do.
average?
Oh, I thought you might ask. Um, so far we have had um in person. This was as of yesterday, and I happen to know that about 8,000 people voted today. So far, as of yesterday, we had 84,277 vote yesterday. We think it will be greater than last year, ultimately, because that doesn't count mail. Our total ballots cast so far early this year are 132,473, if you want a precise answer.
Right.
Uh, but that doesn't count today, and there's some mail has not been processed yet. So we think that it will be above last year's. Early voting is growing, and early in-person voting is growing. Um, but it has changed so much that we never know how to predict. There's what's past isn't prologue in elections.
Understand. I'm going to ask, this is a personal question. I
Sure.
vote by mail every year, and I get a text message and I think a phone call occasionally. Maybe it's just a text message saying that my ballot's been received, right? And
Yeah.
this year I did it differently. I didn't put it in the box. I put it in the mail, and I got a text message saying that the mail that the post office had received, it, and I was very happy with that. I like those updates. But
Well,
I'm
well,
just
I hope so because there are people, and I think there may be some of them with us who have had experience of having the ballot, the the mail ballot not show up, and you have to call and send another one, and we'll send another one. Let me talk about that. People always say if somebody loses it or they don't get it and you send another one, how do you know they didn't vote both of them? Well, remember when you were a kid and you were told that the school had your permanent record and things went on your permanent record? When you cast a vote, it is on your permanent record. And so we look if we get another one from you because it's marked. And if we've already gotten one, we're not going to count the second one. So don't go out and mimeograph things, as people always ask me, why can't I just go out and make copies of ballots and send them in and you won't know? We'll know. We have your permanent record.
Gotcha. Good answer.
And if you vote, we're going to give you an A. No, that's
I have another question in the chat. Do you have a sense of what turnout looks like it's going to be for this
no,
upcoming election?
no. Part of it, part of the reason is, and I didn't explain this, the 808,614 current registered voters, they now figure the turnout on total, and that includes inactive voters. We only have about 75,000 active voters. So I would be surprised. I don't think the turnout will get for us above 65%. And that'll be a lot of people. That, you know, I could be wrong. But I just don't know. We've had a lot of people vote.
Some more early voting questions. Are the
Sure.
early votes either in person or by mail counted before the polls close on election day?
Nope. You can't, we have those ballots. They've been run through early voting. We may not by state law tally them all, put them all, add them all up until election day. They're in the machines. We run the tapes by machines on election day, and we get that number earlier because they're already done. We're not getting them one at a time. Um, we process earlier, we extract, and then we run the mail ballots through on election day. And so all of that happens on election day, but they're all in one, we have a big machines to do that. And so they're done and counted on election day, but the law doesn't let us count them earlier.
Okay. And just one more question regarding early voting. Who decides and when is it decided if Sunday, if there will be any polls open on a Sunday?
Well, we had a Sunday this year,
We
as you
did.
know. We had
Yes.
a Sunday last year, as you know, and we had a Sunday the year before, as you know, but we just do that for November. The electoral board does. It,
The
we
the
decide
Fairfax
to,
County. Gotcha.
yes, we decide to do that. We do far more early voting days than anybody else, because there's so many of us. And people have learned to like it. The difficulty, as I said earlier, that on election day, they then think, oh my gosh, I can just stop in. We've had people come in from Prince William up, I guess that would be Route 1 up that way, or up from Prince William, and they see the vote here signs and they stop in to vote. And we say, you can't do that. You're in Prince William. Um, but you know, I wish they wouldn't, because they won't make voting. One of
Yeah.
the things that we're beginning to hear, and the COVID changed everything, is that we now have people signing, coming to our satellites. Our satellites, the last 13 that just opened, run from 1 to 7, because we were trying to get people who were the traffic jams at work, when you work downtown or had to commute and you couldn't get home by earlier. And so we did that for later. We're now beginning to get requests to open earlier, and we'd have to close earlier. I'm not convinced yet that we know that we're not going to have traffic jams about people working somewhere. Right now, traffic seems to me to be about as bad as it's ever been, but I can't figure out the patterns. But we are having people line up at 12 instead of 1. So if anybody wants to, email us or write us a letter and tell you what you think, feel free to, because we're going to have to figure that out. And that's the change that we're getting right now. There is just a great deal of change has gone on in the last 4 or 5 years. And people now seem to know that when all else fails, and this is one for those of you that may live in Braddock, the other big problem we have is we have several places that are satellites, the government center, the Jim Scott Community Center, the Burke Center Library, for example, are satellites right now, and Centerville Library. They're satellites right now. On election day, we don't use all of them on election day because we don't have precincts and police stations for obvious reasons. So all those places that are in the like North County and Mason District Government Center and West Springfield are not precincts on election day, but the ones I just mentioned are. And people go there on election day who are not in that precinct. And on election day, the government center is not a satellite, it's Monument Precinct. And if you go there, you will not be able to vote. We put up signs, we do a whole lot of stuff, but we need a lot of help with that because we don't have enough spaces to not use them.
I could see that being an issue.
It is.
Absolutely. We had another question. What is the biggest challenge with elections in Fairfax County, and how can we help?
Two big challenges entirely differently. One is the challenge of being able to operate efficiently. Right now, well, there are three. One is we're having trouble finding voting places to vote that meet all our requirements. They have to meet all the ADA requirements. They have to have parking, all those things. So there's that. And of course, the funding. But I don't think this board has been very useful on that. The other one is if you have a question about how we're doing something, or if you hear that we're throwing away every third ballot, or that um, provisionals don't count, or all those things, ask us. And because we will be happy to answer those questions. Observers of the parties are allowed at precincts and all those things. They observe logic and accuracy testing that goes on all our machines. And so rather than stew about it, we'd rather have you ask us so that we can explain why we do it, or if we're what we're doing and why we do it.
Would you also suggest that they become an election officer so they see for
Oh,
themselves?
absolutely. This, I should have thought of that. Um, yes, because we have about 5,000 on our rolls. Um, but people forget they're going to be out of town, particularly on primaries. And this year has been just a really, whew, we had an election, we had a primary, we had an election in September, we have an election in November, we have an election in December, which is already underway. It's we're working really hard to be sure that they're separate and we don't confuse them. And if that turns out in some particular way, we may end up having an election probably in late February or early March, and then we turn around and have a primary again in June. And that's set by law. Thank goodness we got that moved to the third week. So that's, I forgot what the question was.
Just
Yes,
what we could do to help. Yes.
we need lots, no, we need lots of poll workers, election officers. Uh, when you when you when you sign up to be an election officer, you will be given a choice of which party we want to send your application to, or if you want to be unaffiliated, because our election officials, we have to be balanced as near as possible between the parties. And then the unaffiliated fill in. So that's state code. So um, I just saw, by the way, something that wanted a copy of my presentation. It's all kind of off the top of my head with notes. I don't have a copy. I'm sorry.
Well, this recording will be available for those who want to replay it. How about that?
That's fine.
Okay.
Me sitting in the dark.
No, it is actually quite fine. Um, there's another question. Is it too late to sign up to be an election officer?
Yes, yes. But it's not too late to sign up for December. We haven't thought, we appoint election officers every time we meet. We meet about once a month, the electoral board does, and that's one of the things that we do. And I haven't heard if we're going to need more for the December election. But there will be announcements to follow that. You can always sign up. There's a certain amount, a great deal of training. We do a lot of training, as you well know. And it's far more complicated than it used to be when I first started paying attention to elections. And so we do a lot of training.
There's another question in the chat. I think it's more of a statement that you may be able to respond to. 45 days of early voting seems to be more than we need, is the statement. You have a
Okay.
response to that?
Well, we are required to have, once the ballot is printed, we are required to have the ballot available in the registrar's office for people to come. So that is what the satellite at the government center is really the registrar's office. And we move it downstairs because we have a lot of people that want to come. The the two others that we have done for 45 days, North County and Mount Vernon, we have done to enable people at both ends of the county to have access. Um, the others just opened last Thursday or Friday, so they only run 10 days. So the question really is, do we need those other two for 45 days? And that's one of the things that we are looking at, but it is a long way from Mount Vernon, if you're going to be out of town and don't want to use the mail. But it's a good question, and we hear it.
And there is, if anyone else has a question, please put it in the chat. But there is one that I skipped, so I'm going to go back to it. It says, when I go to vote at the early voting locations, the poll worker has a difficult time finding my name. How can this issue be resolved?
I think does that happen every time? Or is it the same poll worker?
And it was, Ms. Carter, you still there? Can you answer that question?
I'll have to look up the chat.
Okay,
Ye-
I see. Here she is. Here she comes.
Okay. Yes, every time I go to vote, every time, it's a difficult time finding my name. It's like it shouldn't be that difficult because I've been voting since 1970 something.
Well, we're having to look on the list the list that comes from the state. So they're searching, um, they're searching to find your name in that list of that precinct. It's not a it's if we have a search engine problem, I'll look into that. But that's interesting. You'll have to know if anybody else has had that problem, because um, that usually is when we have people that have difficulty like that. It may be the difficulty of the familiarity of the person doing it with the equipment. So that may speak to more training. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, because is there any way I can look and see how my name is in the system? Because
Yes, yes. You can go on to the the Virginia Department of Elections and check your name. You can do that.
okay.
That's a good idea. That's
Thanks, Kate.
sure.
And we have one less, I'm sorry, one final, and it's actually a comment, and I hope you appreciate it. And they say, I appreciate all you did to stand up and establish the Katherine Hanley Family Shelter. Now more than ever in these times with families losing jobs and incomes, the family shelter is needed. Thank you again.
Well, I appreciate that. It does great work. I don't have anything to do with the great work it does, and I must admit I didn't do a whole lot except find the money when they needed it. I knew where it was hidden. No, not hidden. I just knew where to find it in the budget. And so it has been incredibly successful, and I'm incredibly proud of them.
Absolutely. When I told someone that we were having Katherine Hanley on today, they said, Katherine Hanley? They it's everyone knows your name, and they should know for many reasons. And I just want to thank you so much for joining us today. Do you have any final comments that you'd like to share?
No, I just hope if you haven't voted yet, you go do it. And you can vote at the government center from 8:30 to 4:30 tomorrow, or at the satellite near you from 1 to 6. Or you can be sure and vote on election day, which, as we all know, is the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November, which is this year, November 4th.
Thank you so much. We so
Thank you.
appreciate it. And I hope you see the all of the hand claps are in the chat and on the screen. Thank you so
Oh,
much for all of the information tonight.
thanks.